Ooh, look out. Tonight I'm gonna stalk your blood. Hello, huge movie fanatic Nace, hopping on by, once again coming at you for one of my famed movie/Blu-ray reviews. Today I'm going to be reviewing the movie and the Blu-ray of Blood Stalkers. There is no escape. So obviously first I'll review the movie, then I'll talk about this still kind of recently released Blu-ray that was put out, I think at the beginning, at the end of 2019 or the beginning of this year, released by Garage House Pictures on Blu-ray. It's the very first time I ever heard of them, or the very first release from them I ever got. So movie first, then I'll review the disc. So my history with Bloodstalkers goes all the way back to 1999. A buddy of mine at the time and I would often rent. Video Update at the time had this deal where you could, I don't know if it was on a certain day or certain days of the week, or if it was just every day, where you could rent. It might have been a certain day, I don't know, like two VHSs for the price of one or something like that. And oftentimes, I mean, this Video Update we used to go to had just, well, I think all of them had really just great VHS horror sections with all these kind of obscure titles. So obviously sometime in 1999, I think it was, I know for sure it was the summertime and stuff, I don't remember for the life of me what the other movie was, but we rented Bloodstalkers, and I've actually got subsequently, probably off of eBay I would imagine, the original VHS from Vidmark Entertainment here, with that classic exploitative image. I mean, who wouldn't rent this movie based on that cover? And what's really cool is it's actually got some of the official, these stickers that put outfits like Mill Creek Blu-rays and stuff like that put on their cover art to try to emulate the 80s VHS era. But those two stickers are, the horror, the green one and the orange one are actually legitimate stickers that are stuck on to the package. But with a cover like this and a title like that underlined in blood, who wouldn't want to rent Bloodstalkers? So it's really cool to actually have this VHS, and then you've got the spine there, and then there is terror in the backwoods, in a place where violence is a way of life. There are many ways to die. Bloodstalkers. It looks like a blood-bathed horror fest to me if you look at the back of the VHS, original VHS. Bloodstalkers. So I don't think I knew until recently that the original title for this movie was The Night Daniel Died, referring to, I guess, that one character in this movie by the name of Daniel. The irony is, 3 people die along with Daniel, so I don't understand why the original title was just The Night Daniel Died. It should have been The Night Daniel and whatever her name is and whatever her name is died. 3 people. So that title really doesn't make sense to me, and the word around the grapevine is, on the Blu-ray and stuff, the guy who wrote and directed the movie, what he says is the reason they changed the title from The Night Daniel Died to Bloodstalkers is because it was so difficult to get the title, because I guess of the length of it. The Night Daniel Died on the marquee or whatever, but I don't know if I really buy that or not. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but regardless, I think that obviously Bloodstalkers is the better title for this movie anyway. And The Night Daniel Died makes it seem like a more classy movie, and why would you put a classy title on a trashy movie? Like the title Bloodstalkers is absolutely perfect, trashy title for this trashy movie, like super lowbrow, low-budget movie. I want to say it was filmed in Florida. One thing I want to say about the movie before I even restart the review is just the wherever they filmed it, oh my gosh, it's just obvious. It's just got this dirty, gritty, grimy ass, just this old town that's just, decaying, and oh my gosh. One thing about this movie that off the bat that's great is just the locale it was filmed in. It just looks like hot as all living hell, and it's just like this town that looks like it's 50 years old. It's never had any kind of, it's amazing if it even has electricity, and just this old ramshackle town. It's just like, oh my gosh. So right off the bat, that atmosphere really adds to the movie, and definitely is a, let's face it, I mean, it's a character. Just that old dilapidated town this movie was filmed in is definitely a character in its own right of this movie. So this movie is basically about two couples, I don't know, middle-aged, approaching middle-aged to middle-aged couples. I mean, the guy who, plays Daniel is definitely, I don't know what, if he's late 40s or early 50s in this movie or whatever. You've got all kinds of different, and then his wife or girlfriend or whoever she is like, I don't know, if she's like 15 years younger than he is. You've got all these different age groups, it looks like, kind of a little bit of a range of age groups with these two couples just in their station wagon and with their little doggy heading out on vacation to this main character's, I don't know this character's name or whatever, but the guy who lives at the end. It's basically it's very much what would go on to happen with the premise of, Screams of a Winter Night, and then of course Evil Dead and stuff. And what Robert Morgan should be really proud of is that, he was one of the first to do these kind of, the couples driving out to the cabin thing. And he, although it's fair to say that Evil Dead definitely got, the more of the popularity and the cult following and sequels to boot and stuff. I mean, Robert Morgan's Stalkers was definitely, did it before Sam Raimi and company did it. They were probably still in high school while Stalkers was being made. But so it's just that basic premise of, two couples taking a trip out to this cabin to spend the weekend, and it's this main character's cabin, the guy who ends up living at the end of the movie. It's his family's place, and I don't think he or even I think it's been like 8 years since any of his family or anything has even been out to the cabin. So it's kind of like, I don't know, it's through dialogue and stuff you get this idea that his wife and or there's the couple which are probably their friends and stuff, maybe make him go on cruises or go to Europe and all this kind of stuff. Well, this year it's my turn, so quit your bitching. We're gonna go to the old Aiken cabin. So just like with what Texas Chainsaw Massacre already did, like a year or two before this movie, at the very beginning, and it's just like what happens in Screams of a Winter Night too later on, where at the very beginning it's like the car full of people that are heading up to this cabin, stop at the gas station. It's just this cliched frickin' thing that movies would just do over and over and over. And what's ironic is, I don't know if I can't imagine the people who did Screams of a Winter Night even saw Bloodstalkers, but it's just like one of these things that just happens in some of these movies at the beginning, where it's just like they're on the way up to the cabin. Well, first scene is at the gas station with kooky individuals and stuff like that they encounter. But the main character who's driving who lives at the end and who is driving the station wagon and stuff, asks this old guy at the gas station for directions, and this guy's none too friendly. And he's like, once the old gas station guy finds out that he's heading over to the Aiken cabin, he's like, oh, you and your friends best head on home or head on back to where you came from. We don't want your kind here, or whatever the hell he says. So he's not, this guy who's trying to find his family's cabin is trying to find directions, trying to find a cabin, not having been there for quite a long time. He's not getting any help, and then they encounter these three guys, one of which is played by the writer-director, whatever his name is, Robert W. Morgan himself, because I guess what he says in the Blu-ray extra features is that, the guy who was supposed to play this role that he ended up playing ended up in jail for drunk driving, which is, oh boy, that's just so nice, isn't it? So, the Robert Morgan ended up playing this part himself, and which isn't a big part or anything like that. And I guess because he ended up in it, he's shifted as much of the dialogue away from his character to the other ones as possible, because I don't know if he couldn't remember dialogue or what. But anyway, these three guys, and God, these guys look. One thing I will say about this movie is just the authenticity of just like like I was talking about the town being all dilapidated, like the characters that permeate the town in the movie are just all just wearing tattered clothes, and just look, these three guys, once you see them with their guns and stuff, and the one guy with the knife, he's just like, oh my God, these guys are so frickin' just barbaric looking and stuff and whatever. And once the people drive off, they have some conversation amongst each other regarding, I don't know, it's kind of vague with this part of the movie, hunting or whatever. They kind of, all these three guys and the older guy who's kind of seems to be in charge are all kind of, they're always kind of quarrel with each other, like, young kittens or puppies or something like that. They're always quarreling with each other. But of course the couple ends up finding the Aiken cabin, and it's the dirt road to the cabin from the road is just overgrown with foliage and stuff, so they have to park the car at the end of the road and walk to the cabin. And I don't know, I didn't listen to the whole commentary. I don't know if they built this cabin. I would imagine maybe they did, maybe they didn't. I don't know if they built this cabin, this little structure for the movie or not. But just like the town structure, or the town in the movie, all ramshackle town and stuff, this cabin location that they film in has got that same just look of just being like, oh my gosh, just rustic, rugged, just old, dilapidated, and all this stuff. So if there's nothing else really to be had from this movie, which there is, you could at least take away that from it. It's just like, oh my gosh, just the movie just seems like it's just filmed in this hot, really hot place, and it's just the ramshackleness of all the locations in the movie really add a great atmosphere. But so I mean, the plot of this movie is very simple. They just have dinner, and then they're gonna go skinny dipping. And what's so funny about this part of the movie is, like, they the couple with the older guy and the younger girl. And one thing I will say about this younger girl with the big bosoms and stuff, like, man, when we first saw this in 1999, when I was just watching this movie, hoping that those things would pop out of her shirt at some point, because oh my gosh, they just look so uncomfortable and confined in that top she's wearing, in the first part of the movie or whatever. But turns out that I would see Porky's 2 this year for the very first time, and it turns out that the actress, the busty actress from Stalkers, does end up being topless and naked-ish in Porky's 2. So that was nice to be able to see. 21 years later, I was actually able to see this woman topless, and naked and stuff. So now I've lived, now everything's good or whatever. But what's so funny about these two characters is when the other two characters go off to skinny dip after dinner or whatever, these two characters, this busty, buxom chick and the older guy who's like, I don't know, almost 20 years older than her or whatever, go into this. And I just feel like this is just so out of place for this kind of just exploitative backwoods horror movie. Like, all of a sudden it goes into like a soap opera scene where it's just like, oh, this guy, I guess his wife's or girlfriend, I don't know if they're married, I guess she's a stripper, and he doesn't like that, and she doesn't love the fact that he's an entertainer himself, and he's got to go where the work is, and I don't know if, obviously I would imagine that means he's never home, and the drama ensues, and it's like they both do like these crocodile tears, just trying to pretending like they're crying. The dramatic music comes up, and it's just like, this is completely and totally out of place for this movie, and really just really laughable. But I mean, it's it's one of those scenes where you just have fun laughing at, like, why did this movie go to this scene, like, where it's all dramatic and they're trying to keep their freaking relationship afloat, and let's just be here and now in the moment and whatever. And it's just like, oh my gosh. And then later on we'll see the other couple skinny dipping in a I think pretty much all of the night stuff, unless you're just looking at an exterior of a building, a really small area, I think all of the night stuff is day for night. And I will say it's done pretty well, where I mean, it really does look like, if you were to actually flood the whole scenes with the bluish light at actual night, I mean, you really wouldn't end up with a look that would be that much different, other than, of course, the one problem with day for night that you really can't escape if you've got shots of sky in it, of course, is the brighter-ish sky. But if you've got a big, full moon out with no clouds, I mean, the sky can actually be kind of brightish. So, but what I'm just saying is that the day for night in this movie does work pretty well, and I will say that. So this other couple is taking a skinny dip. And oh, that's one thing I forgot to mention about the beginning of the movie, when the guy came in contact with the old grumpy guy in the gas station. He warned them, he's like, stay away from the Aiken cabin, and he's like, he tried to scare him away by saying, blood stalkers. don't go up there, that's Bloodstalker country now. And I don't think he really said what Bloodstalkers are. He's just trying to scare him away from the location and, keep him away from the location, and the reason why we'll find out, of course, at the end of the movie. But that's one thing I forgot to mention. The guy tries to scare him away by saying, that's Bloodstalker country now. Don't go up there, you'll be in danger or whatever. So when these couple is skinny dipping in day for night scene or whatever, they hear noises, and the guy earlier heard what he said was a mountain lion or a whatever the hell he said, panther scream, row or whatever, and they're hearing noises, and we're seeing throughout this part of the movie, we're seeing apparitions of possibly hairy creatures, humanoid hairy creatures walking around in the shadows, and one even goes into the water and kind of scares him out of the water and comes out of the water all hairy and wet. So at this point, the viewer, this is like a movie about, at this point you're thinking, no, the Bloodstalkers are like these hairy, Bigfoot creatures or something like that permeate the area where the cabin is or whatever. But I guess I'm kind of just doing a beat by beat, which is fine because the beats are relatively short and there's not a whole hell of a lot of beats. And then the next scene will be, of course, them after the skinny dipping and stuff like that. They're all ready for bedtime, and this is the scene where now we've had the dramatic scene with the buxom chick and the guy who's like 20 years older than her. We can have a little bit of a dramatic scene with the other two couple where, this guy who owns the Aiken cabin and stuff, his family owned it, he's been in Nam and had some terrible experiences in Nam, and he's got a rat-tattered past because he actually accidentally in Nam went in and shot up a house full of women and old men and children, and he's got this scarred past being this former military guy who was in Nam and all this kind of stuff, and he's got it's not quite as dramatic as the scene with the buxom chick and the older guy, but he's got his own demons and past to deal with, which I guess is a little more relevant to the movie because he ends up being a kind of a quote-unquote commando, a little bit guy. He's like the only one who really has the skills equipped, his skills necessary to survive the night in Bloodstalker country, if you will. And what ends up happening is as the main couple go on off to bed, the buxom chick and the other guy just hang back and this and that, and there's this thing where the guy's up on the balcony, and there's this scary Sasquatch arm that comes through the screen and chokes the buxom chick. So it's like nothing really even happens until I don't know if this is like the 45-minute mark of the movie or something like that. Like if you're expecting body count and stuff, you're not going to be too impressed with this movie because there's not a lot that really happens as far as gore stuff or this or that. But it's really funny because then they zoom in on this older guy's face and he's like all sweaty. I don't know if they put sprayed him, probably sprayed his face with mist or whatever, and he's just like, this shot of him in terror, just with his face is completely wet, and the other guy, the former Nam soldier guy, is the one who comes out from the bedroom or whatever and saves the buxom chick, and she's in shock, and he's got a little gun that's got 2 bullets, holds 2 bullets in it, and he's got that saves the day, and so basically, that she's attacked and he saves her, and then they're like rattling the roof and stuff, and then he like shoots 2 shots into the roof, and then you hear like something fall out in the front door and see blood coming under the window, or not under the window, under the door, and they open it up to see like their dog is all bloody, and I guess it's implying that he shot his dog, and it makes no sense because someone was on the roof just deliberately rattling it and stomping on it, so I don't understand why, unless they just threw the dog over the roof after he shot the bullets. I don't understand why the bloody dog is outside the door after he shot at the roof or whatever, but whatever. What's so great is you can see the dog like just breathing, and I think its eyes are moving. So they just like laid the dog down and poured blood on it for that shot, for those shots. I think you see it like twice really quick, but it's just breathing and the eyes moving. Of course, I guess, if you really want to get technical, it could still be alive and after it's shot and before it's dead or whatever. But so after the siege of the Aiken cabin, the siege on the Aiken cabin, basically this former military guy and Nam, who shot up a house full of old men, women, and children accidentally, he's got this past of being a mass murderer or whatever. He decides that he better go look for some help in the town in the middle of the night. Otherwise, I don't know why they have to. Oh, I guess his excuse why he has to go look now is because under the darkness of night he can sneak out or whatever, and it's just like whatever. But so he feels like he's got to go in the middle of the night to try to get help. Like, you're going to get help from anyone in this town. That's of course what he ends up experiencing. He equips the older guy who's the lover or whatever of the buxom babe chick with like an axe and one of those sickle things, and he equips him as best he can and instructs him to get him in the neck with that sickle thing and or the axe or whatever, and the guy has to actually go just to make sure, in the neck, and he's like, in the neck. So you're kind of, as a viewer, like, yeah, I don't think the women are going to be too safe with this guy, as the guy leaves them to go try to find help. And of course he ends up finding none. What's so funny is there's this actual, and it turns out in the supplements and the extras and stuff from the director, this little musical thing, and you can kind of tell that watching it anyway, this musical thing full of all these people that are doing these songs and the famous, I can't even remember what the hell the lyrics are, the place to lay my head or whatever thing or whatever, during all the carnage, these just religious-esque songs or whatever. I mean, that was just an actual group of people doing it, for real, and they just filmed it, which was really cool, because then they incorporated the music into the movie and into one of the, I guess, kind of one of the only really scenes. I mean, the scene is done kind of in a way that's really confident, where, of course, which appears to be like a creature, a spooky-looking creature, basically attacks the Daniel and the two women he's supposed to be protecting, and while this main guy is running back to the cabin after not being able to get any help, and they kind of incorporate this song during this scene, and then some really interesting, looks like 2,000 or 3,000 frames a second slow motion shots of the guy running through the water and trying to get there, and this hopelessness of, I mean, I will say it's really artistic. Oh, one thing I want to mention before I get into that is that it's kind of artistic also when they show this musical group, these people singing this religious musical stuff, and he goes in for help. This one guy comes out and, outside, and he goes to him for help, and he like asking him for help, and it's, I don't know, maybe, I don't know why they did it this way. Maybe they lost the sound on this stuff, but regardless of why it was done this way, it kind of comes across being artistic. Basically, when the guy comes out and asks the other guy for help or whatever, the music, all we hear is just the music of the people singing inside, and we see them talking, but we don't hear what they're saying, and it's just kind of artistic, because he's asking for help, of course, and then there'll be one part, where the guy is clearly shaking his head and all this stuff and that, and it kind of makes you, the more I think about it, it kind of makes you realize that maybe it was meant to be this way, because they have him, being very vocal in a physical manner of no, so maybe he knew he was going to do this way when he filmed it, but it was just kind of creative, just to have the music in the background and the guy just shaking his head. So he's asking for help and being denied. And then there's this one brief point where the music stops and you can hear the guy go, "Why?" Like, why won't you help me? And then the music starts again, and it's just like, it's really kind of a creative bit, and then I guess, so there, it's just kind of fun. And then, so after that, it goes to the scene where I was talking about, where the, supposed Bloodstalker creature or whatever is attacking Daniel and the women and stuff, and it's got that song playing during it with slow motion shots of the guy trying to get back, and it's kind of indicating that it's hopeless, that he's not going to get there in time to save them or whatever. And I will say it's kind of the way it's done with the creepy looking face of the Bloodstalker creature or whatever, and just slowly furry thing coming down the stairs and all this and that. It's kind of, let's admit it, it's kind of creepy in a way, and I think it would have creeped me out as a kid and stuff. And of course, you don't see actually any carnage on screen. It's only when the guy the next morning is able to find like this deputy or whatever, and comes back to the cabin to find basically Daniel and the two women slaughtered, and the buxom chick's hanging upside down in a pool of her own blood and just all white, and the older guy's sickled to the stud, the freaking stud in the cabin, and through the neck, ironically. So it's he got it through the neck. No, you're supposed to get the guy who's attacking you neck. You don't put it through your own neck, Daniel. But maybe that was his mistake. That'd be so funny if he actually how he needed such specific instruction in the neck. Like maybe you can argue that, oh my gosh, he didn't specify whose neck, and I can just see that carnage happening, and then Daniel going and stabbing himself in the neck. That'd be funny. And then of course the main guy's wife, the famous shot of the cover here this is how she's found with laying on the table with the axe in her chest, which is just like beyond classic imagery for people who are fans of this genre, this kind of grindhouse, if you will, exploitation 70s cinema or whatever. So once he sees that, he's like, oh my God, sees all his friends and his wife dead and stuff. Then he sees someone throwing sacks of stuff out from the upper upper storage room of the cabin inside, and he's like, this guy coming out with this basically freaking fursuit on, and it's one of these guys from the gas station, and it's like clearly, and basically the main guy who's got a rifle. Where did he get the rifle? I don't remember where he got the rifle from. But he's got this rifle. It must be the guy in the actual poacher guy's rifle. So he grabs his rifle and shoots this guy, and the deputy's like, who you just killed? That's blah 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 blah. And he usually travels with the two other guys and then the old man or whatever, Jarvis, Pip, and the old man. And so if he's here, you darn well tooting that the other two or the other three aren't far behind or whatever. And the deputy goes out, is creeping outside with his gun, and you can see it's clearly a rubber hand. And he gets chopped off by the guy who actually directed the movie, playing one of the henchmen, and he's like, and for some reason blood's coming out of his mouth because he got his hand chopped off. It's just like, yeah, whatever. See, as you watch the end of the movie, you can understand why they didn't really show the carnage, the massacre of the three people on screen, because it's like, because when you see something on screen, it just looks fake and laughable or whatever. So, basically the end of the movie is, just happens right after he discovers his wife and the two other people dead. Basically, the characters come, the bad people, the blood stalkers, if you will. It was revealed that they're just poachers, and they've been using the Aiken cabin to store their, animal hides or whatever, the stuff that dead animals that they kill, and they use it as a storage area. That's why the old man didn't want them going to that place, because they've been using it themselves for the last 8 years or whatever. And so the rest of the movie is basically just the main guy, the former military guy, killing off the rest of these. I don't know if you call these characters bloodstalkers or whatever. Just the people, the criminals, the poacher guys who were at. We met all four of them. The old man and the three guys at the gas station at the beginning. So they're the ones who kind of, I guess, spread this Bloodstalkers story around town to scare people, maybe keep them away from the cabin or something like that. So, of course, the one thing that's kind of interesting about the way that, the main guy ends up killing the three guys is that he ends up setting them up so when the old man comes to the cabin, the old man discovers them in exactly the same way that he discovered his wife and friends, where the one guy, I can't remember if the one guy's hanging or not, but then the other guy's, got the sickle to his neck, to the stud in the freaking, the beam in the cabin, and then the one guy's laying on the table with the axe in his stomach, just like his wife. So that's kind of interesting how it's kind of like an eye for an eye, if you will. Like, you killed three of my friends, I killed three of your friends. And what's so funny about the killing of this one guy with the axe is it's just this, oh my God, John Woo, eat your heart out. I will say that it's really cool how this one, that one guy with the gut at the end of the movie gets the axe. You don't really see anything, just the lead up to it, but it's done in this super freaking slow-mo where the door comes open and you just see like this guy bringing the axe up, and the guy's face, I think his reactions even in slow-mo, and just like this slow-mo that's just like, oh my gosh. And it's dumb and it's cool at the same time, So basically, that's the end of the movie. I mean, he kills the 3 people that killed his wife and friends, and presumably kills the old man. You don't see that happen on camera, and there's just basically walks out of the town, and that's the end credits, basically. And I will say, the way he looks the next morning, after him trying to find help and stuff, the next morning, that scene for the rest of the movie, the end scene, he looks so, I don't know what they did to make him look so ill and sickly and just worn out and stuff, but I mean, he looks like he's dead. I mean, actually dead. So whatever they put on him, like some gray makeup, or to make him look just completely exhausted and worn out and dirty and grimy, oh my gosh. It's really, he really looks completely just like he's just walking dead at the end of the movie. And when he's walking out of the town, he's walking past people that he asked for help that denied him, and kind of giving him the stink eye, and walking out of the town. So I mean, it is a really, it's again, I mean, you can definitely see correlations between this and Evil Dead. I mean, completely and totally. And it's just like, oh my gosh, it makes you wonder if Sam Raimi and company, saw this and or Screams of a Winter Night, because they would go on to do pretty much the same thing, with the exception of, his movie was actually like supernatural versus, well, I guess kind of Screams of a Winter Night was too. But one thing about this movie that might be a little bit of a letdown to people, of course, that are hoping for like a, an actual monster movie, is of course the reveal of there not being any monsters, but just them being poachers. But I think it's kind of a cool enough idea, and a kind of a cool enough switcheroo to make you go, oh, to kind of appreciate it and go, well, that's okay. It's, they were, even if it was supposed to be a real monster in the movie, it's a guy in a suit anyway, so you might as well just write that into the story as well. So having just rewatched Stalkers again, this is one of those movies that my star rating isn't going to necessarily reflect how much it means to me. I'm only going to be able to go 2 stars out of 4 stars for Stalkers, because let's face it, it's got a lot of boring stuff. Like in the middle of the night when he's looking for help, he comes across the gas station with all 3 of these guys, and they're all just having a fight and fighting each other for no frickin' reason. I remember laughing with my buddy watching the tape, and he couldn't even see anything, and it's just like, oh my god. And then there's this scene, following it, the guy accidentally makes a noise, so then these guys are looking for him in the ramshackle ruins of the town or whatever at night, and it's just like you can't see anything, and it's just so boring. It just seems like clearly like filler stuff. And the same thing with like the end of the movie when the bad guys are looking for him, and it's just like, so there's a lot of scenes that are just like, oh my gosh, that kind of just go on and on and on and stuff. It's one of these movies that it's just like, I like more than my star rating reflects it. I don't know, I just don't think it really deserves any more than 2 stars. But don't get me wrong, it's one of these movies, of course, that's been with me for 21 years, and something that holds a special place in my heart. It's a movie that, in my opinion, it really doesn't, you can't really watch it very often, because if you watch it, you're like, yeah, that was fun and cool and goofy and all, but I think I'm good for several months on Stalkers. It's not something you can just, like, for me anyway, that you can watch and watch and watch and watch, because it's, I don't know, not a whole hell of a lot there to see. But if you like these grimy, dirty, quote-unquote grindhouse movies from the 70s, I mean, this might be right up your alley. Completely just minuscule, low-budget kind of stuff. It'll probably be right up your alley. Now on to my review of the recently, I guess within the last year, released Blu-ray by Garage House Pictures. As I said, I've never heard of Garage House Pictures before. Apparently it's a region-free Blu-ray, which is nice. First time ever on HD, or I don't think there's ever even been an official DVD release of it. with a newly commissioned cover art, which, you know, just like the movie is kind of goofy, the cover art's kind of goofy too. And, you know, I kind of like that just generic B cover art, B horror movie B cover art to go with it or whatever. Special features on this release include audio commentary by Robert W. Morgan, moderated by Jeff, you know, I don't know if you say Steven or Stefan. One thing I will say about this commentary, I didn't try to listen to it all the way through, but I did try to listen to parts of it, and what I found is that it's probably not like a screen-specific commentary where they're watching the movie and talking about it. It seems like just audio interviews that are just randomly placed throughout the movie. Like there's a lot of dead air in between some of the sound bites. So just you know, buyer beware that it's not like a complete and total constant commentary where they're just, you know, talking about specific things on screen. As I said, I didn't listen enough to decide whether or not it's that way or not. I don't think they're watching the movie. I think it's just audio clips of him, just this guy asking him different questions that randomly appear throughout the movie. So the commentary might be just bits and pieces of it randomly throughout the movie. So just beware that that might be the kind of commentary it is versus, you know, oh ha. Now that shot right there was, I don't think it's like that, and there's a lot of blank spaces in between commentary segments. Then you've got Bloodstalkers Revisited, 2017 documentary short, which is kind of cool, and for my money, I wish this was longer. They've actually just shooting a little video of them actually showing this movie, I think on 35mm at a drive-in, and it looks like a really kind of a small drive-in. But it's really kind of cool, and there's, you know, people that have come out to sign Robert Morgan signing VHSs and posters and this kind of stuff. So it's kind of like a night of Bloodstalkers screening, 35mm screening of Bloodstalkers at the drive-in. And as I said, I mean, I would have just as soon have this be, you know, a freaking 2-hour long video just showcasing the playing of the whole movie and recording audience reaction. And it would have been cool to have, you know, the sound of the whole showing, you know, echoing through the drive-in and stuff, and people's reactions to what's going on as an audio option. I think they really missed out on an opportunity to document this Bloodstalkers screening at the drive-in in a more in-depth way. You know, I mean, it's just like a freaking, I think it's like a 5 or 6 minute video, so it's, and for my money, it should have been a lot longer than that. On-camera interviews with Robert W. Morgan, still gallery, linear notes by Robert W. Morgan on the making of Bloodstalkers, The Mansion of Terror, unproduced screenplay, original theatrical trailer, and Garage House Pictures trailers. And one thing I want to say about the, I don't think it mentions it here, but it's got the alternate title, opening title sequence for the night Daniel died, and because I always wondered why, you know, in the opening, when they show the title, it's like Bloodstalkers in white or gray or whatever, and it's like clunk, and then it like goes to red. And I always just like laughed at that, like, what the hell's that about? But now having been able to see the original title, it's actually really cool. They got this, you know, I love the logo for the night Daniel died, and they've actually got animation where this, the night that Daniel died title is there, and then Sickle comes in and goes clunk, like into the bottom of the title, and then the blood starts dripping off the title, The Night Daniel Died. And of course, you know, when you actually see Bloodstalkers, you know the continuation of the blood, and it kind of pools on the bottom. So it's actually like animation, and it's just the biggest bummer in the world that, you know, that animation was lost, but it's nice to have actually been able to see it. So on to the, you know, I've got the Blu-ray way back when it came out in December or January or whatever, and been meaning to review it a lot sooner than now. But so this is the second time I've actually seen the Blu-ray, and I will say that, you know, arguably this, I imagine, is the best way or the best element or the best way you're ever going to see this movie. I will say that it's really rough. The Blu-ray is really rough. The whole movie has a, like, you know, it's the classic old print or, you know, old film kind of look of being pink. You know, the whole movie has a pink tone to it on the Blu-ray presentation. And one thing I will say for positive is, having seen it twice now, just recently again, the Blu-ray, I don't think there's like any missing film. You'd think with a movie this old, this obscure, you know, print is kind of like with the Rituals DVD, and I would imagine the Blu-ray that came out subsequently, which I never actually ended up getting yet, is that, you know, you think it'd be missing little chunks and pieces of film. From what I can see, you know, although the you know, the Blu-ray is kind of rough, there's no instances where you're missing any bits of film, and it's, you know, things are jumping a few seconds ahead or anything like that. There is one moment during that really dark scene where guys are trying to, you know, where they're looking around trying to find the guy in the middle of the night, where the sound drops and just goes to, I think, silent and come back. But I don't think there's any missing film, which was really surprising. But the whole movie is more or less really kind of rough looking. On one hand, it's nice to see it in higher definition, but on the other hand, it's like, yeah, I'm not too keen on the pinkish, you know, tint of basically that permeates the whole movie. So that's kind of a bummer. And then watching it again just recently, I'm like, oh my God, the sound is really, compared even to the VHS, the sound is really rough. And one of the ways I could tell early on is that goofy guy, who I guess is a member of the crew or something like that, who they come across in the beginning of the movie, who's just like, let's see if I can do this. I don't think I can do it as well as he can. You know what I'm saying. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. He makes these sounds with his mouth that go pop, 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 or whatever. Like, you can barely hear that on the Blu-ray. And I watched I actually, way back in the day, put the VHS on DVD, and I popped that in for that scene, and I'm like, oh my God, you can hear each one of his mouth pops just so good. So the audio on the Blu-ray is actually inferior to the audio on the VHS, which is a bummer. The only thing that's really an improvement over the VHS, I mean, I'd say even the colors on the VHS are better. The only thing that you're getting as an improvement over the VHS is just the clarity of, you know, it's just the definition is better. But that's really even not all that great, where, you know, well, I mean, the definition is good, but I mean, it seems, I don't know if it's DNR'd, or it doesn't seem like there's a lot of film grain necessarily. So the Blu-ray overall is kind of a mess. It seems like some of the day for night scenes, the dark scenes, you can see, you know, see things better, like they're brighter than they were on the VHS, so that might be one of the advantages of the Blu-ray versus VHS. But I was disappointed, having watched it again, how you know, the image is just pink all the way through, pinkish, and the sound is really, but I mean, it's, you know, it's an obscure title, so you're not going to have access to the best elements or whatever. The sound is really kind of rough, and I found myself just like turning it up and turning it up and turning it up. I mean, it's really rough. It's not like an ideal, it's like the Blu-ray of Screams of Winter Night that I reviewed at the beginning of the year. It's not an ideal situation like that. It's really a kind of a rough presentation. So I guess that'll pretty much be my review for the, you know, the audio visual aspect of the release. I don't know if anyone else could have done a better job. I don't know if it's because of this, you know, this really small, kind of relatively not too known company, Garage House Pictures. I don't know if anyone else could have done a better job with the elements. Probably, chances are maybe not. But you know, at any rate, that's my review of the disc. When you open up the case, you will find the same artwork, the newly commissioned cover art on the disc, and these cool, I'll probably take a still photo of this so you can read it all if you're so inclined to do so. The linear notes by writer-director Robert W. Morgan. And I will say, you know, this is good use of the interior of the cover, I think. So that way you can do it without having to, you know, spend the money for an additional piece of paper or some booklet to also be featured in the release. It can save some money and cut costs by doing it this way. I guess that pretty much does it for my review of the movie and Blu-ray of Blood Stalkers. It's if you like, as I said, if you like 70s grindhouse, kind of just like bottom of the barrel, really low budget, quote-unquote kind of horror movies, especially like backwoods kind of, you know, monster movie-ish horror movies or whatever that are just so goofy that they're just fun to laugh at. You might like this movie, but buyer beware when it comes to the Blu-ray, because it's one of the more rough Blu-rays I've really come across. that features like one of these older movies, if not the roughest, as far as an old movie from the 70s being presented on Blu-ray. So I guess in one aspect one could say about that for a positive is that I guess seeing a rough version of a movie that might be tinted a little red or pink or whatever, and with dodgy sound or whatever, is it might be kind of an interesting way to try to experience. If you write off the Blu-ray like it's the midnight showing, aka grindhouse movie experience, to try to make up for the fact that the visual and the audio aspect of the Blu-ray might not be up to par, I guess one could do that. So I guess that's pretty much it. Thank you very much for watching this video, and as always, we'll catch you on the next one.